Many people spend their lives hoping they will leave a trace behind them and that their existence will somehow continue to matter long after they are gone and no longer able to influence the world around them. Some dream of wealth, success, fame, recognition, or extraordinary achievements because they believe those things are the only way to prove that their life was meaningful and worth remembering. They imagine a future where people remember their name long after they have disappeared and where their accomplishments continue to speak for them across generations. The problem is that very few people ever reach that level of recognition, no matter how talented, determined, or hardworking they may be throughout their lives. For every person remembered by millions, there are countless others whose names slowly fade away, despite all the effort, sacrifice, and dedication they invested in their journey. When people realize this, they often begin to feel disappointed because they compare themselves to standards that almost nobody can realistically achieve. They look at famous figures, successful entrepreneurs, celebrated artists, influential leaders and innovators, and wonder why their own life seems so ordinary by comparison. Over time, this comparison can create a quiet sense of failure that follows them through the years and makes even meaningful accomplishments feel insignificant. They begin to believe that if the world does not remember them, then their life must not have mattered very much, and that everything they did will eventually be forgotten. But perhaps we are looking for significance in the wrong place and measuring success with a scale that was never designed to measure a human life. Perhaps the value of a life cannot be measured by the number of strangers who remember your name, but by something much closer and much more personal. Perhaps it should be measured by the number of lives that became better because you were part of them and because your presence made a difference. Think about the people who have influenced you the most throughout your life and ask yourself how many of them were actually famous. Many of them were probably ordinary people whose names never appeared in history books and whose faces never appeared on television screens. A teacher may have changed the direction of your future through a single conversation and may never have realized the impact of those few minutes. A friend may have helped you survive a difficult period simply by listening when nobody else seemed willing to understand what you were going through. A parent may have sacrificed opportunities, comfort dreams, and personal ambitions so that you could build a better life than the one they had. The world may never know their names, and yet their influence continues to exist through the people they touched and helped along the way. That influence is a trace just as real as any monument-building fortune company or public achievement that people usually admire. In some ways, it may be even more powerful because it continues through human lives rather than through objects that eventually disappear. We often underestimate the effect our actions have on the people around us because those effects are rarely visible in the moment they occur. A kind word may be remembered for years, while a moment of encouragement may inspire a decision that changes the direction of an entire life. Most of the important things we leave behind are invisible and impossible to measure because they exist beyond number statistics and recognition. They survive in memories, lessons, values, examples, acts of kindness, and moments of support that continue moving from one person to another. The tragedy is that many people spend their lives chasing recognition while overlooking the meaningful influence they already have every day. They search for ways to be remembered by the world while forgetting the people who already remember them and appreciate their presence. The desire to leave a trace is not wrong because it comes from a deeply human need to know that our life mattered and had a purpose. What becomes dangerous is believing that only extraordinary achievements can give our life meaning, while ordinary acts of goodness somehow do not count. A meaningful life does not require millions of followers, enormous wealth, public recognition, or a place in history books. Sometimes a meaningful life is simply a life that made other lives better and left people stronger, wiser, kinder, or more hopeful than before. Sometimes the greatest legacy is not a name that survives for centuries, but an example that survives in the people who knew you personally. The values you demonstrate today may continue long after you are gone through the choices made by your children, friends, colleagues, and loved ones. The patience you show, the kindness you offer, and the courage you display may inspire people in ways that you will never fully understand. In the end, most of us will not be remembered by the entire world, and perhaps that was never the purpose of being here. Because the true trace you leave behind is not measured by how many people know your name, but by how many lives became better, because you were part of their story. And if even one person lives a better life because they met you, then perhaps your trace was already far greater than you ever imagined.